Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mira. I totally agree with you. I mean, part of solving and resolving this crisis is by working together, regardless of politics and policy. And I think that's very, very important. And so God bless. I look forward to working with you on this and speaking about it. Thank you so much. We have a survivor here. I'm Sarah Carter. And some of you may know me, some of you may not. I know you know. But we are going to introduce our first panel, and I think it's very important that we keep the discussion going. But I do want to give a moment of time to introduce Carola here. Carola de la Cuesta is a survivor of human trafficking. She was taken as a young girl, and she was trafficked. And she and I were just talking about this, and I'm going to let her tell her story, but through 4 different countries, and not one person ever recognized the fact that she was enslaved and being trafficked. And this is her story. I'm going to let her talk, and then I'm going to give her a minute, and then we're going to introduce the panel. And she'll be with me later on another panel where she'll be able to tell her story.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's gonna be super quick. I think the importance of us as survivors being here is that you see that we are capable of making this and this happen. Like all of us, like people with like Rosie and everybody with an organization is able to change a life and like stop this crime to continue. The fact that I'm here is like if I tell you that I won the lotto 10 times, that is that unlikely. Only 1% of the people that is been trafficking survive, you know that. I was trafficked like among at least 40 other women over the years by famous producers and singers in Mexico. The authorities, everybody knows about it, and nothing's happening. So why are we here? I am here because I don't want this to keep happening to anyone. We know how hard it is to be there, that you prefer to die, to go to jail, whatever, rather than being there. And basically, we want this to stop. So everything you can do, it doesn't matter if me, myself, Rosie, perhaps we say, we're not getting nowhere. But yes, whatever we can do is important for our life. So please keep working. I think that's a message we've been repeating since yesterday. Everything we can do, like the movie, like the people in government, like everybody, every little movement and every little prayer is going straight to the right place. So thank you. Please keep up, and let's introduce the panel.
Okay, let's do it. It's amazing. It's amazing, and you'll hear more about her story later on. But this is, for panel number 1, is As One, the importance of the U.S. Mexico Relationship, which I think is central to what we're doing here.
El panel número 1 es como uno, la importancia de Estados Unidos y la relación entre México y Estados Unidos.
And our moderator today will be Ken Oliver, el moderador.
El moderador es Kevin Oliver. Si puede.
And we have the panelists today, Ambassador Chris Landau, Congresswoman Carol Miller, Senator Nancy de la Sierra, Senator Jorge Carlos Marin, Federal Deputy Juanita Guerra Mena, who is the president of the City Security Commission.
Bienvenidos a todos los panelistas. Gracias.
Bienvenidos.
So we're going to keep this bilingual and binational today. I'm Ken Oliver from Texas Public Policy Foundation. We're all involved in this, and I think the importance of the effort within the context, the U.S. Mexico relationship within the context of stopping the human trafficking and rescuing and restoring the victims.
Contexto de relaciones Estados Unidos-México y el contexto de las víctimas, desde esa perspectiva voy a compartir.
So we'll start with Congresswoman Miller, who has some remarks, and I guess your general view, and you prepared some remarks, and I know you have a commitment and were with us last night, so really appreciate the Congresswoman spending the most time on this issue for us today.
Entonces tenemos la bienvenida a congresista Miller, que estuvo anoche, y ella lo va a compartir desde su espacio de influencia.
Doesn't sound like it.
It doesn't, okay.
See if mine will.
Good morning, everyone. I am a congresswoman, but I am more importantly a mother and a grandmother. I am a woman who inside is still a little girl. And to understand what the human trafficking does to that precious little spirit, I am so impressed with the strength of the young women who are here today, who have become free, who have become who they can be by getting away from human trafficking. You know,
Estoy aquí y entiendo que soy congresista, soy madre, soy abuela. También soy una niña desde mi interior. Y ver como una niña este problema, este desafío de trata de personas es impactante. Y también es muy impactante ver el espíritu de las sobrevivientes y ver cómo han vencido o están venciendo y cómo están en camino a cumplir todo su potencial.
Americans are very aware of the problem that we have at our border. The media and politicians are quick to highlight the flood of illegal drugs and the illegal immigrants that are coming into the United States. But you're not hearing as much about the evil of human trafficking that, in my opinion, is being overlooked.
En Estados Unidos se conoce el problema en general. Los medios, los políticos hablan mucho de la droga que entra al país, de los inmigrantes que están entrando al país, pero menos de este gran desafío, de este gran problema que es el problema de la trata de personas.
I've heard many, many numbers, but it's impossible to really know the exact statistics of human trafficking. The Mexican cartels have found that trafficking people is actually far more profitable than drug smuggling.
Hemos visto que los números, hay muchos números que podemos examinar. En cuanto nosotros vemos esto, entendemos de los carteles que hay mucho más dinero y ganancia en hacer tráfico de personas que hacer tráfico de drogas.
If you just think of the moral repercussions of the open southern border, and you think about the parents who may spend all the money they have to send their child across the border for opportunity, not understanding what happens to that precious child on the other side of the border.
Hay consecuencias morales a este gran desafío. Imagínense el padre que hace todo lo posible para conseguir todo el dinero que no tiene para enviar a su hijo o hija a la frontera y después llegan a ser víctimas de trata. Imagínense esta consecuencia.
They have basically sold their children to smugglers
Sin querer vendieron a sus hijos
for slave labor and sex trafficking.
para trata de personas, para trato sexual de niños.
That is when the American dream becomes a nightmare for these children.
Y es el momento que el sueño americano se hace la pesadilla americana para estos niños.
I am a Republican, and my Republican caucus has seen the layers of devastation that is happening at our southern border, and I have seen it firsthand.
Yo soy republicana y mis colegas republicanos hemos visto los efectos devastadores de esto y no solo en teoría, lo hemos visto a primera mano.
I have traveled to the border with groups, many congressmen going down to see firsthand.
He viajado con varios grupos, varios congresistas que juntos hemos visto esto a primera mano.
And you see people that are so happy because they think they've made it. But all those people I didn't see who have been taken away and smuggled, they do not have a smile on their face.
Y a veces vemos a personas, les conocemos y están alegres porque pudieron llegar. Pero la verdad es que no vimos a la mayoría de personas que no llegaron. Y entre ellos los que antes de llegar ya fueron tomadas como víctimas de trata.
I also was chosen to be on I wouldn't call it Codel. I was on a trip with other elected women from what we call Latin America. I met with congresswomen and senator women from all the countries down in Argentina.
Tuve la oportunidad de tener un encuentro que fue de mujeres, mujeres latinoamericanas involucradas en política, congresistas, senadores, mujeres. En Argentina nos vimos de todas las Américas.
And the stories some of those women told me are heartbreaking.
Me contaron historias que quebrantaron mi corazón.
I learned of 9-year-old little girls that are kept drugged up. I learned that they could be pregnant. That it is horrific what we do to our children.
Me contaron historias de niñas de 9 años que son endrogadas, que a veces quedan embarazadas. Me contaron situaciones difíciles de lo que está ocurriendo a niños.
My first trip to Guatemala came when I had only been in Congress for 3 months.
Mi primer viaje a Guatemala llegó a los 3 meses de haber sido congresista.
That is where I learned about abuse. I learned about women's rights and the strength of the women that are fighting. And a lot of those women are the ones who wanted to bring their children across the border because they wanted them to have a better life.
Y es así que yo pude conocer las realidades que viven en cuanto al abuso, los derechos que buscan, la fuerza de las madres que simplemente quieren una vida mejor para los niños.
I am happy to say that I have learned that the women's rights have gotten stronger and stronger in the last 3 years.
Me place decir y observar que los derechos de las mujeres han sido fortalecidos grandemente en los últimos 3 años.
I serve on the Ways and Means Committee and the Trade Subcommittee.
Yo sirvo en 2 comités que tienen que ver con intercambio y con recursos.
It is very important to me on a political level that the trade between our countries gets stronger so that the opportunities for families to stay together, to be stronger, to raise up to a middle class happens when there are good jobs available.
A mí me interesa mucho promover el intercambio entre los países porque al haber intercambio entre nuestros países, nosotros podemos ver que se pueden beneficiar familias y tener mejores oportunidades cuando hay trabajos disponibles.
That's why I like to meet with ambassadors
Por eso me gusta reunirme con embajadores
to make sure that we communicate as people as well as politicians.
que nos ayudan a comunicarnos como personas y no solo como políticos.
Because I do believe that as countries can help raise up with better jobs, some of these things will fall apart.
Porque yo entiendo que si podemos lograr que nuestros países podamos proveer más oportunidades, más trabajos, algunas de estas situaciones van a mejorar.
But right now, today, we have a problem.
Pero hoy día tenemos un gran problema.
Speaker McCarthy appointed me to a committee for combating cartels.
Yo he sido nombrada a un comité por nuestra autoridad Kevin McCarthy, para luchar contra los carteles.
This particular task force is starting out concentrating in Mexico to see what we can learn and what we can help fix.
Esta comisión tiene su primer enfoque a México para ver qué podemos hacer y cómo podemos proveer soluciones.
And I do feel that it is very important to restore the integrity of our borders so that we have good, healthy immigration back and forth.
Y me interesa también que dentro de todo debemos restaurar la integridad de la frontera para que tengamos mejores oportunidades dentro de nuestro sistema migratorio.
I do feel that the information that we will gather on this task force will reinforce the human trafficking element and what we can do. And hopefully, by the end of the year, we will start having a plan that we can put together and possibly put some good laws into action.
Y yo espero que el informe que obtenga esta comisión incluya unas soluciones específicas que impliquen el mejoramiento del desafío de trata y que hacia el fin del año no solo tengamos información, pero tengamos un plan que podamos sugerir y que puede ser de apoyo.
And I do feel that we must work hand in hand with the Mexican government to solve the problem at the border.
Y entiendo que necesitamos trabajar mano a mano con el gobierno mexicano para resolver el desafío de la frontera.
So that we can stop the criminal activity, the horrors, the dying of in the soul of these precious little children who are being so mistreated, sometimes through no fault of their parents, when their parents think they're doing the right thing when they really have not.
Y así podemos parar lo que es una actividad criminal y a veces es una actividad desconocida. Los padres ni siquiera están atentos a la realidad que están viviendo.
Please know that I will do everything in my power to stop this drug trafficking and the children trafficking that is just so devastating as a human being, as a mother, as a grandmother, as an aunt. You know, all I can do is try my hardest. We had our hands up last night in prayer. And again, it's what I have in my own hands that I can do to help control the human trafficking and put a stop to this terrible thing that has occurred through the last few years.
Y yo quiero que sepan que yo haré todo lo posible dentro de esta responsabilidad para dar respuestas a este desafío que es tan grande. Primeramente en mi postura como congresista, pero también soy madre, soy tía. Anoche estuvimos reunidos todos y levantamos nuestras manos en oración. Y fue pedido de nosotros qué tenemos en nuestra mano. Y yo estoy considerando eso para mí y pido que cada uno considere qué tenemos en nuestra mano para vencer a esto, para este movimiento que necesita surgir.
I leave you all with God's blessing because we need that in our hearts and we need to move forward. Thank you so much.
Que la bendición de Dios les acompañe. Dios los bendiga.
Congresswoman, if you could stay with us a few more minutes. I want to go to Ambassador Landau. Ambassador Landau, you were at the heart of the relationship between the United States and Mexico. You're a diplomat, also a candid person. And I want to, based on that, ask the question to you, what has been your experience, your view about the political will and the ability of both countries to get law enforcement to root out human trafficking everywhere it's going on?
Ken, thanks for that question. And first of all, thanks for including me in this conference. It's a real honor to be here today. I think trafficking deserves to be at the top of the U.S. Mexico agenda just because it is such a critical issue. But I think as the Congresswoman just alluded to, it is part of the overall border issue. And I think it gets somewhat swallowed up in the border issue. And I think one of the problems is that when politicians come to that issue, everybody brings a certain ideology. And I think we should recognize, everyone should recognize, that one of the tragedies of the current situation is that it fosters trafficking. You know, I don't think you'll find anybody that will defend trafficking, and I think people just need to be honest and realistic about that. That is a cost of the of some of these migration policies, that you can't really separate a focus on trafficking from the overall border situation. And I think it's
Excuse me, one second. El embajador Randel, como un diplomático, la pregunta ha sido, ¿qué usted
yo mismo
ve?
lo puedo decir en español, si prefiere.
Excelente.
Why don't you just say it all in
Sí,
Spanish?
bueno, en primer lugar quisiera agradecer a todos por la invitación y estar acá. este tema de la trata es un tema que realmente no se puede divorciar del tema de la frontera en general. Y creo que nuestras políticas hacia la frontera, a veces tanto nos enfocamos en cuestiones de migración que no nos damos cuenta de que este tema de la trata es parte del problema y que realmente no podemos hablar de estos temas de la frontera sin entender que esto implica actividad criminal como es la trata. Yo creo que todos debemos estar de acuerdo que la trata es algo que debemos estar en contra, pero hay gente que realmente avanza ideas sobre la frontera sin tener en mente, sin tener en cuenta esos problemas de la trata.
That's better.
No,
I want to include Senator de la Sierra from Puebla.
Sí, seguro.
Senator de la Sierra, Nancy, what do you have to say in terms of Puebla and what are the challenges that need to be overcome from the Mexico side and then looking at the U.S. side as well?
Thank you. Bueno, antes que nada, muy buenos días a todas y a todos. Gracias por hacerme partícipe de este evento tan importante en una fecha que se acerca, el 30 de julio, como la conmemoración de la trata de personas. Y yo como senadora de la República quisiera hacer énfasis, y lo hago en mi idioma porque creo que este mensaje debe llegar a todos aquellos gobiernos locales y federales de mi país para poder cumplir con la Ley General para la prevención, sanción y erradicación de los delitos en materia de trata de personas y protección y asistencia de víctimas de este delito. Quiero decirles que Rosy Orozco, desde el 2012, fue quien encabezó esta gran ley marco que cumplirá 12 años y que definitivamente pone en el centro a la víctima, que es donde debiéramos colocar el trabajo para poder partir y poder avanzar. ¿Va a ser traducción?
Gracias, senadora.
En Spanish, en inglés.
Sí, qué privilegio poder, what a privilege to be here. Yes. Need it in Russian? Okay.
I love it.
What a privilege to be here in this day, a very historic day, this 30th of July, where we take a look at, we take a look at the local and federal authorities in regards to the general law established in 2012 for the protection and the sanction of the challenge of trafficking in our nation. In 2012, Rosy Orozco, which is when I met her, was used in order to promote and pass this law, of which I was part. And the important thing about this law is this: it is centered around the victim. It is focused on the victim, and that's why it's a solution.
Gracias a este trabajo colectivo de diferentes organizaciones de la sociedad civil, de instituciones públicas, del Poder Legislativo y particularmente de esta Comisión Especial contra la Trata de Personas de la Cámara de Diputados, que, como les decía, lideró Rosy Orozco en México, hemos logrado tener sentencias condenatorias contra personas que cometen este terrible delito. Esto representa un enorme avance en materia de impunidad y acceso a la justicia de las víctimas. Gracias al análisis de los casos en el Poder Judicial de la Federación de Juan José Olvera, que presentamos el año pasado en el Senado de la República, notamos que hasta el 12 de marzo del 2022, México contaba con 1,013 sentencias de amparo derivadas de la ley de trata.
It's important for us, as we evaluate what's been happening, this has been a collection, if you will, of many efforts, NGOs, the legislature, the Congress, the chamber where Rosy had served, and from the Senate where I am involved. The sanctions have been applied at a municipal level. I can report to you 12 years later that there's been 1,013 cases that have been presented to bring to justice regarding this great challenge.
Este valioso avance en materia de acceso a la justicia es considerado porque está en absoluta impunidad que rodea desafortunadamente a este crimen. Este paso adelante también ha llevado que el contenido de las sentencias nos permitan obtener información sobre trata y víctimas. Más del 70% de los procesos judiciales sobre trata tienen que ver con prostitución forzada. casi el 10% con pornografía infantil y un tercer lugar está en el trabajo forzado con un 8%. Pero los primeros dos delitos, alrededor del 80% son mujeres y niñas. En este caso, el trabajo forzado, las víctimas son hombres y niños.
And when we look at what we're dealing with, the impunity, historical impunity that has occurred, we're taking step forwards. We're examining now, we're informed that 70% of the judicial processes are against prostitution. 10% of these are children. 80% are women. And continúe, por favor.
Y si bien debemos reconocer que estas sentencias de amparo obedecen al apellido, y lo voy a entrecomillar, sancionar de la ley, es necesario que pongamos más atención en prevenir y erradicar, que ese sea el nombre de nuestra ley. La Oficina de la ONU contra la Droga y el Delito dio a conocer a inicios de este año que la cifra de víctimas de trata ha estado en aumento. El 67% tan solo aumentó de 2020 a 2021, un aumento que se anticipó por la pandemia.
We have seen that as important as these laws that sanction, that oppose legally these crimes, we must invest and look at more directly prevention and eradication of this 21st century form of slavery. According to the UN, between 2020 and 2021, there has been an increase of 67% due to the pandemic.
Okay, thank you. En este sentido, la sistematización de las cifras y los datos sobre la evolución de este delito es necesario para saber si la ley está cumpliendo la función y el objetivo por el cual fue creada. No todas las autoridades que imparten justicia cuentan con estos datos, lo cual debe darnos un panorama más claro que tenemos que hacer una sistematización porque lo que no se mide es difícil cambiarlo.
And here we highlight the importance of systematizing these measures. How do we measure success? It's wonderful that the law has been applied, has been fulfilled, but we understand that not all authorities have access to this. So if you cannot measure it, you cannot know if you're really having success. So the importance of systematizing our information in our system is paramount.
Necesitamos saber con números si esta ley previene y erradica la trata, porque una reparación integral que solo contempla el castigo a los delincuentes no es integral, es punitiva, es retribucionista y carece de vocación transformadora como lo requiere la Comisión Interamericana de los Derechos Humanos. Además, quiero destacar, y con mucha pena lo digo, que hay 2 estados de los 32 de nuestra República, Colima y Durango, que ni siquiera han reportado sentencia en materia de trata, a pesar de los reportes que en prensa denuncian las víctimas por explotación sexual.
It's very important that since the law itself states that it's for prevention and eradication, this informs us then that punishment is important, but it cannot be the only retribution to which this law applies. In our Inter-American Human Rights Group, we are not encouraged when we see 2 of our 32 states, Tolima and Durango, that have had no reporting. In spite of news reports that give us some information, there is no faithful, if you will, fidelity in reporting to the progress in these places, and this cannot be allowed to continue.
Y así es como existe también un enorme pendiente con los gobiernos estatales para que cumplan, como lo dice la ley, con la obligación de construir refugios para quienes han logrado escapar de las sofocantes redes de la trata. Una tarea que suma mucha relevancia en la actualidad porque solamente 6 gobiernos de mi país cuentan con un refugio cuando la ley obliga a los 32 estados a contar con estos espacios que permitan la readaptación de aquellas víctimas que pudieron escapar de este terrible delito.
And that's why it is important that the states and the governors of the state also adhere to this law. We have an obligation to establish refuge centers. The law states that our government, therefore our states, are obliged to do this. But we count on 6 governors or 6 states that have fulfilled this. We have 32 states in Mexico, so we still have a way to go, and we must measure this and we must pursue this.
Por eso quiero reiterar mi compromiso desde la presidencia de la Comisión de Organismos Internacionales en el Senado de la República para visibilizar este terrible delito que desafortunadamente se convierte en el segundo más importante de ingresos en nuestro país. Si nosotros no podemos hacer algo desde nuestra trinchera para erradicar este delito, entonces no tenemos nada que hacer en el poder. Les agradezco mucho que me hayan escuchado. Gracias.
And as president of the Commission of the Senate, I'm here and I want to be intentional in that we must visibilize this incredible challenge that we have in this 21st century slavery. It is important to know that this continues to be the second largest income generating activity of our country. This cannot be allowed to stand, so let's continue working together to tackle this problem.
I want to just ask for some closing thoughts, maybe a minute at the most or 2 each, starting with Ambassador Landau on, we know governments are complicit to some extent at various levels with what's going on. How do we change that?
Yeah, I think one of the really important engines for changing this is just more public awareness of the problem. That's why I want to congratulate the people who were involved in the movie Sound of Freedom. I think there are few media that are as powerful as film. I had the privilege of seeing the movie when I was ambassador to Mexico, and it really moved me. That was 3 years ago, and it makes me very happy to see what a great success it is now. Lo que dije es que creo que es muy importante que tengamos más conciencia entre todo el pueblo, que no es solamente una cuestión de gobiernos, es una cuestión también que la gente sepa lo que está pasando y que la importancia de la película Sonido de la Libertad, que las películas son una forma de arte pero muy poderosas y creo que eso nos va a ayudar mucho. And I also want to just underscore a point that Mira Sorvino made before, which is that we've got to focus on the demand side of the equation. It seems ridiculous that this is everybody's focusing on the wrong part of the problem. We have these criminals who are soliciting sex from minors and trafficked people. That is something that our criminal justice system really needs to focus on. También, por último, quiero destacar la importancia de lo que dijo Mira Sorvino sobre la importancia de que las autoridades traten de capturar y de llevar ante la justicia a la gente que solicita al sexo de menores y de gente que ha sido víctimas de trata. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm so proud to be in this room full of people.
Estoy tan orgullosa de estar en este cuarto lleno de ustedes, las personas que están aquí.
Fear is a very strangling thing.
El temor te puede estrangular.
10 loud voices gets so much more attention than 10,000 quiet voices.
10 voces fuertes pueden traer mucha más atención que 10,000 voces que no se escuchan.
So let's take these 100 voices and be very loud.
¿Qué tal si los 100 que estamos aquí tomamos nuestra voz y gritamos juntos?
Yeah. Thank you. Bueno, yo quisiera complementar mi participación dejando claro que la cooperación internacional de buenas prácticas es fundamental entre ambos países, porque, como bien lo decía el embajador, La migración ha sido desafortunadamente uno de los problemas con los que más nos topamos cuando hablamos de trata de personas. Estas buenas prácticas tenemos que hacerlas como un compromiso común de los gobiernos, de las legislaciones, pero también tenemos que avanzar en nuestros compromisos de Agenda 2030 firmados en la ONU, como el compromiso 5, que tiene que ver con género, pero que habla de esta explotación sexual, incluyendo la trata en mujeres y niñas. Por eso tenemos que avanzar en la igualdad de género. Tenemos que avanzar en el objetivo 8, trabajo y crecimiento económico, reconociendo que el Estado debe adoptar medidas inmediatas y eficaces para dotar y erradicar el trabajo forzado y la trata.
It is important, I want to be very clear, that we must highlight and encourage the study and the common sharing of good practices. It should not be just a tiny point within the wider immigration debate. It is important that the 2030 Social Development Goals of the United Nations are also attached to the way that we measure our success. And then the goal number 5 is, which deals with gender, talks specifically about sexual exploitation. So this is one place where we can all gather and be part of a solution. The number 8 has to do with availability of work and economic growth. These two, for instance, goals, social development goals of the United Nations, and their measurement can greatly contribute to progress with this great challenge.
El objetivo 16 de nuestra Agenda 2030, paz, justicia e instituciones sólidas, plantea poner fin al maltrato, la explotación y trata de niños, un tema que también ha sido prioritario en la Agenda de Seguridad Humana entre México y los Estados Unidos, particularmente ante el reto compartido de la migración de la frontera norte. Por eso debemos cuidar siempre y luchar por el bien superior que es nuestra niñez.
And then also the Social Development Goal number 16, which has to do with peace and justice. The goal here is to really take steps that would end and eradicate this great evil. And immigration it's part of the issue, but this in specific, which is the enslavement of people, is our united point of action.
Y por último, comentarles que he presentado varios exhortos e iniciativas en el Senado mexicano. Uno muy interesante y que desafortunadamente no ha implementado el gobierno federal sobre un registro nacional de refugios y albergues, casas de medio camino para la asistencia de víctimas de trata, porque hay que reconocer que sin el trabajo de la sociedad civil, de las organizaciones y de las personas que se dedican a compartir esta experiencia con la sociedad a través del cine, a través de conferencias, hay poca concientización del grave problema que significa la trata. Cuando no tenemos a una persona cerca de nosotros que ha sido víctima, es muy difícil entender lo que viven cada una de ellas todos los días.
I want to confirm that I've presented various initiatives before the Senate, including an initiative to have national registries of all of our refuge centers. It's an initiative that has not yet been applied by the federal government, but it is one we must continue to pursue. We want to share in every way, yes, through film, yes, through conferences, yes, through annual awareness. We want to increase the awareness so that with awareness, we could take steps to implement this Social Development Goal number 16.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you join me in offering a round of applause to our panelists today?
Un aplauso.